So pay attention as we get you through some interesting yet very tough times in our country's history.
The Roaring Twenties introduced us to heroes who seem larger than life. Babe Ruth had been banging out home runs by the bunches, and in 1927 he hit 60 dingers, a record which would remain until 1961. While Babe was popping fly balls, a man named Charles Lindbergh was busy flying solo across the Atlantic Ocean, and he did it without even one bag of peanuts.
The booming good times of the 20s came to a screeching halt in 1929. The stock market crash on Black Tuesday, October 29th, was seen as the beginning of the Great Depression. In just a matter of days, whole fortunes went down the toilet. During this terrible time, millions of people were unable to find jobs and had to beg for food and sleep on city streets. Even the music reflected these difficult years, with songs such as Brother, Can You Spare a Dime becoming popular radio hits.
The Great Depression lasted 10 years. As people lost their jobs, they bought fewer goods. Factories began to close, and even more people became unemployed. They began taking their savings out of banks, and the banks had no more money left to give out. Soup lines sprang up all over America, and the more fortunate tried to help those in need to survive.
I hate to be the bearer of more bad news, but to make matters worse, a terrible drought hit the Great Plains states during the early 1930s. The lack of rain turned once fertile fields into worthless dust bowls. Thousands of farmers headed into the cities looking for work, but of course, there weren't any jobs to be had. This depression stuff is really depressing. How did we get stuck with this segment? When did things start to get better?
Jenny, I thought you'd never ask. Went up the president and got a new guy. That's not a bad idea. Franklin Delano Roosevelt came into office with a New Deal, which began to put the nation back on its feet. The government created jobs to jumpstart the economy. With his second New Deal, he gave more help to the unemployed, and housing was built for the poor. A system called Social Security was set up to help retired people. I wonder if that Social Security thing included aging teachers.
President Roosevelt was a great man with many ideas that helped the nation. He was so popular, he was elected by the people of our country 4 times. While his programs helped to pull us out of the Depression, it took a great crisis called World War II to finally put an end to it. Greg, how did we get involved in another war?
Well, Jenny, again the U.S. hoped to stay out of the fighting, but we didn't like the idea that Adolf Hitler of Germany and Benito Mussolini of Italy were carving up Europe and gobbling up countries like Pac-Man used to do. But we stayed out as long as we could. When Japan joined Hitler and Mussolini's team, we prepared for war. On December 7, 1941, Japan bombed the American naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. They wiped out battleships, planes, and more than 1,500 lives in their surprise attack. The USS Arizona was one of the ships lost that day. Congress had no choice but to declare war on Japan, and within a few days, Germany and Italy had also become the enemy.
During the war, American soldiers only found rest, relaxation, and fun. Finally, some fun. At social clubs known as USOs, these clubs were intended to brighten the soldiers' spirits and...
Jenny, I have a special report to bring to our viewers. UFOs have been seen in the United States. I'm hard on this story, folks. These UFOs have been seen all over the country.
Dudley!
I have been told that these UFOs, which means unidentified flying objects, are shaped like table saucers without the cups.
Dudley!
I also have been told that these UFOs have tiny little green people inside them, about this size, and they've come from another planet to learn about...
Dudley!
Jenny?
I was explaining to the viewers about USOs. Those were the call letters that stood for United Service Organization. Even though UFOs seem very interesting, we're not talking about them right now. Do you understand?
USOs, not UFOs?
Yes, Dudley.
Oops, never mind.
As I was saying, the USOs were created to provide a little fun for the soldiers and to lessen the pain of homesickness. Let's take a quick peek into one now.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up, and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he could not jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next year the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. A root, a toot, a tootly out a toot. He blows an 8 to the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was some boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. When he played boogie woogie bugle, he was busy as a busy bee. When he played, he made the company jump 8 to the bar. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. Da-da-da, doodly-yada, doodly-yada, doot-doot, he blows 8 to the bar. He can't blow a note of a bass and guitar isn't with him. And the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Greetings, viewers. I'm Katie Party, along with my partner in news, Katie Diedoff. We're going to finish off the 1940s, run you through the 1950s, and we'll even start into the 1960s. So hang on. Katie, how did that World War II thing finish up?
Well, Katie, Germany and its leader Hitler lost this one too. The U.S., along with their allies, the Soviet Union and Great Britain, finished off the bad guys. The war ended in Europe on May 8, 1945. The Allies had earlier defeated Italy. Japan was the last to surrender. President Truman made a decision to end the war quickly. That way fewer American soldiers would have to die. He decided to use the most powerful weapon the world had never seen. It was called the atomic bomb. The U.S. dropped the bomb on 2 cities in Japan on August 6th and 9th. Japan then surrendered and World War II was finally over. It was a very costly war too. Worldwide, the war took over 38 million lives. The U.S. lost over 300,000 lives and more than 700,000 were wounded. I won't even get into what it cost money-wise. Let's just say it was mega much.
Enough of the bad stuff. With the war over and our home, happy days were here again. Our population started to grow. Many babies were born in the years right after the war. The name baby boomers was coined. Those people in the audience that will turn 53 this year are the original baby boomers. Check it out. They're the ones now pushing. Our country also began changing for the better. In 1947, Jackie Robinson became the first black ball player to be allowed to play in the major leagues. It had been a long time coming. Some other positives in the late 1940s were the development of transistors, the beginning of Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors, all fat of course, and you could buy a Coca-Cola for a nickel. The Polaroid camera was invented in the 40s. It could produce a finished picture in 60 seconds. A toy called the Slinky was a big hit, and those McDonald's brothers started their first hamburger stand. This was very important in American history because it would later provide future basketball players like Michael Jordan the opportunity to pick up a few extra $1 million in advertisement endorsements. This would help those poor, underpaid NBA players survive during future basketball lockouts.
Welcome to the fabulous 50s. It was a time of hula hoops, Play-Doh, cars with big tail fins, jet airline service, and the start of the race to space. The U.S. also got involved in a policing conflict in Korea, but I'm sick of talking about wars, so forget about it. Everybody loved Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays. The nation was moving to the suburbs, and a new kind of shopping called malls began to sprout up all over the nation. Americans were also into watching the tube. Television was getting big. People enjoyed shows like The Honeymooners, Ozzie and Harriet, and Leave It to Beaver. It was a time of happy days, drive-in theaters, and a new kind of music called rock and roll. You can now listen to it on something called hi-fi.
Hey, Johnny, have you seen Billy's new 57 Chevy?
Yeah, it's cool, real cool. And I love that color, turquoise and white. It's a drop-top Bel Air.
Yeah, it also has white tuck-and-roll leather seats.
Yeah, it's cool, real cool.
We're sorry. We didn't mean any harm.
Yeah, we're sorry. Hey, do you girls want to join us down at the malt shop?
As if? Are you two out of your mind? Yeah, don't you know what time it is?
It's 4 o'clock. So what?
Total losers.
4
Honey, where are we going? What's the deal?
Bandstand. It's time for American Bandstand.
We're going hopping today, where things are popping, the Philadelphia way. We're gonna drop on all the music they play on the bandstand. We're going swinging, we're gonna swing in the crowd, and we'll be clinging and floating high as a cloud. The phones are ringing, my mom and dad are so proud. I'm on bandstand, and I'll jump and hey, I may even show 'em my handstand, because I'm on the American Bandstand. When we dance real slow, I'll show all the guys in the grandstand what a swinger I am on American Bandstand. We're going hopping today, where things are popping, the Philadelphia way. We're gonna drop it on all the music they play on the bandstand. Bandstand, 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 bandstand.
Welcome back. It is now time to introduce you to those years known as the turbulent 60s. This was a time of much change in our country. It was a decade full of the good, the bad, and the very, very ugly. One major change toward the good was that the civil rights movement really took off during the 60s. The goal to eliminate discrimination and the belief in the American dream of liberty and justice for all had outstanding leaders to follow. Great Americans like President John F. Kennedy, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert F. Kennedy worked hard to make life better for all people.
Way back in 1865, the 13th Amendment was passed. It freed the blacks and eliminated slavery in the United States. President Abraham Lincoln was a man who hoped to do away with slavery. The leaders of the 1960s took their cue from him. President John F. Kennedy was also a believer in people's rights. He started the United States Peace Corps. This organization would help people living in developing nations raise their standards of living. He also urged Congress to pass laws requiring hotels and restaurants to admit customers regardless of race.
Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream of equality. He wanted all people to be treated with equal rights and respect. The Reverend King worked for change through nonviolent ways. In 1964, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for leading nonviolent civil rights demonstrations. Under his leadership, many whites, as well as blacks, worked hard towards ending discrimination against black Americans. Another leader for people's rights was Robert F. Kennedy. Like his brother John, he wanted all people to have the opportunity to succeed. Robert worked towards the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He was a man of peace who hoped to see an end to all wars.
These men tried to find a better way for all Americans. Unfortunately, each had their life cut short by the very violence they had fought so hard against.
Score and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal.
No one has been barred on the account of their race for fighting or dying for America. There are no white or colored signs on the foxholes or graveyards of battle. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you.